The classroom was filled with students from different planets. Some had 4 arms, some had scales, others had skin that changed colors. They all sat together in the Galactic Military Academy, learning how to become soldiers. Professor Vorik stood at the front. He was a krill, tall and strong with 4 powerful arms. His people were known as the best warriors in the galaxy. He had fought in many wars and won many battles. Today he had a question for his students. "Listen carefully," Professor Vorik said. His voice was deep and serious. "Imagine you are trapped. Enemies are coming from all sides. You cannot run away. You must fight. How many enemies can you defeat before they defeat you?" The students started talking to each other. This was an important question. Every soldier needed to know their limits. A krill student named Hyon raised one of his 4 hands. "I can take down 10 enemies, maybe 12. We krill are very strong," he looked proud. Other krill students nodded in agreement. A Silene student spoke next. The Silene were fast and could move quietly. "I think 5 to 7 enemies. I would use speed and surprise." Her voice was soft but confident. More students gave their answers. The Threxians, who had natural armor on their bodies, said 12 to 15. The winged Avari said 6 to 8. All the answers were between 5 and 15 enemies. This seemed normal to everyone. Then Professor Vorik looked at the back of the room. "What about you, Specialist Ryu? What is your answer?" Everyone turned to look. Taemin Ryu sat quietly in the back row. He was human. Humans were new to the galaxy. They joined the coalition only 15 years ago. Most aliens thought humans were weak. Humans had no claws, no armor, no venom. They were just soft and small. Taemin did not answer right away. He just sat there thinking. "Come on, human," Hyon laughed. "Tell us. How many, 3? Maybe 4? Other students started laughing too. Professor Vorik raised one hand. The laughing stopped. "Specialist Ryu, I asked you a question. Please answer." Taemin finally spoke. His voice was calm and quiet. "Sir, humans do not think about fighting that way." "What do you mean?" Professor Vorik asked. "The question is wrong," Taemin said. "You ask how many enemies we can take down. But that is not how humans think. We do not count enemies. We just keep fighting until there are no more enemies left, or until we cannot fight anymore." The classroom became very quiet. Then someone laughed. Then everyone was laughing. Even some of the teachers smiled. "That is crazy," Hyon said between laughs. "You cannot just fight forever. Your body will stop. You will get tired. You will die." Taemin looked at Hyon. His face showed no emotion. "Yes, maybe I will die. But the enemies will die first." The laughing got louder. Students were shaking their heads. This human was either very brave or very stupid. Professor Vorik was not laughing. He looked at Taemin with interest. Something about the human's eyes made him curious. They were not the eyes of someone making a joke. They were serious, cold. "Sure, you really believe this?" the professor asked. "Yes, sir." Professor Vorik thought for a moment. Then he made a decision. "Very well. Let us test your claim. Tomorrow you will enter the combat simulation arena. You will face combat drones. We will see how many you can defeat." The classroom went silent again. This was serious. The combat simulation was dangerous. The drones were programmed to fight like real soldiers. Many students failed after just a few drones. Some got hurt badly. "Do you accept this challenge?" Professor Vorik asked. Taemin stood up slowly. He looked at the professor. Then he looked at all the students who had been laughing at him. "Yes, sir. I accept. Good. The test will be tomorrow at noon. Everyone can come and watch." Professor Vorik smiled slightly. "We will finally see what humans are really made of." As the class ended, students filed out of the room. They were all talking excitedly. This would be interesting. Most thought Taemin would fail quickly. Maybe he would defeat 10 drones if he was lucky. Then he would have to give up or get hurt trying. Only one person was not smiling. In the back of the room, Commander Park watched everything. She was human like Taemin. She was the human liaison officer at the academy. She had seen the whole conversation. A Silene student named Mira walked up to her. "Commander, is he really going to try this? The simulation is very dangerous." Commander Park looked at Mira. Her face was sad but also proud. "Yes, he will try. And you should all watch carefully. You are about to learn something important about humans." "What will we learn?" Mira asked. Commander Park walked toward the door. She stopped and looked back. "You will learn why Earth's predators learn to fear us. and why we were the only species on our planet that learned to run marathons and hunt until our prey collapsed from exhaustion. We do not stop, Mira. That is what makes us human. Then she left. Mira stood alone in the empty classroom, thinking about those words. For the first time, she felt a small touch of worry. Maybe everyone was wrong about humans. Maybe they did not understand them at all. Tomorrow would tell them the truth. The news spread through the academy like fire. By evening, everyone knew about the challenge. A human was going to fight in the combat simulation. Most students had never seen a human fight before. This would be entertaining. In the cafeteria, students gathered in groups placing bets. How many drones would the human defeat? Most bet between 5 and 12. A few generous souls bet 15. One Threxian student bet 20, but everyone laughed at him. 20 was impossible for a human. I give him 10, Jan said, eating his dinner with 2 of his 4 hands. Maybe 8. Humans are small and weak. No claws, no natural armor. They break easily. Mira sat with her group but said nothing. She kept thinking about Commander Park's words. Something felt wrong about all this confidence. She decided to do research. That night, Mira went to the academy library. She searched the database for information about humans. There was not much. Humans were new to the galaxy. But there was some data about Earth, their home planet. She read about Earth's history. What she found made her uncomfortable. Humans had fought wars for thousands of years. Not just small fights. Big wars, terrible wars, wars where millions died. She read about something called World War II. Over 60 million humans died. But they kept fighting. She found stories of human battles. At a place called Thermopylae, 300 soldiers held off thousands of enemies for days. At the Alamo, less than 200 fighters faced thousands. They all died, but they did not surrender. At Rorke's Drift, 100 soldiers fought 4,000 warriors. They won, Mira read faster. Her heart beat harder. These stories could not be true. But they were in the official Earth historical database. These things really happened. She found information about human biology. Humans could sweat, which let them cool down while running. Other Earth animals could not do this. So humans would chase them, for hours, for days sometimes, running and running until the animal was too tired to move. Then the humans would kill it. They called it persistence hunting. Humans were not the strongest animals on Earth. They were not the fastest. They had no claws or fangs or venom, but they became the rulers of their entire planet. How? Because they never stopped. They could not be escaped. They could not be outlasted. They just kept coming. Mira closed the database. She felt cold. Everyone thought tomorrow would be funny. Everyone thought Taman would fail quickly. But maybe everyone was wrong. Meanwhile, in the combat simulation control room, Professor Vorik was setting up the test. He programmed the drones carefully. They would be tough but fair. Each drone would fight like a real soldier. Strong, fast, smart. How many waves should we prepare? Asked his assistant, a young Avari named Kess. Professor Vorik thought about it. Prepare 20 waves, 5 drones in each wave. That is 100 drones total. He will never reach the end, but we should be prepared. Kess looked surprised. 100? Sir, no student has ever defeated more than 30 drones. Is that not too many? Better to have extra, the professor said. But something in his voice was uncertain. He remembered Taman's eyes. Those cold, sure eyes. In his small room, Taman prepared. He did not sleep much. He spent the night checking his equipment, reviewing the arena layout and thinking about strategy. But mostly he did something else. He went to a quiet place in his mind. A cold place on Earth. Special soldiers learned to do this. They learned to turn off the part of their brain that felt fear. They learned to turn off the part that felt pain. They learned to become something simple and focused. A weapon with a single purpose. Around midnight, someone knocked on his door. It was Commander Park. May I come in? She asked. Taman nodded. She entered and sat down. For a long moment, they said nothing. They were both human. They both understood what tomorrow meant. They think this will be entertaining, Commander Park finally said. They think you will try hard and fail. They think it will be a good show. I know, Taman said. So I need to ask you something important. She looked directly at him. Tomorrow, will you show them what we are? Or will you show them what we become when we have to? Taman understood the question. She was asking if he would fight normally, like the other species did, or if he would fight like a human. Really fight, the way humans fought when everything depended on it. They need to know, he said quietly. They need to understand what humans are, not because we want to scare them. Because they need to know what we can do, so they can trust us when it matters. Commander Park nodded slowly. She looked sad and proud at the same time. Then show them. Show them everything. She stood up to leave. At the door, she stopped. Taman, when you are in there, remember something. You are not just representing yourself. You are showing them what humanity is, what we were, what we are, what we will always be. I understand, Commander. After she left, Taman stood at his window. He looked out at the stars. Tomorrow, thousands of aliens would watch him. They would expect him to fail. They would expect him to give up when things got hard. They would expect him to act like them, but he would not. Because humans were different. Humans came from a world where everything wanted to kill them, where the weather could kill, where hunger could kill, where other tribes could kill. Humans learned one simple rule to survive. Never give up. Never stop. Never surrender. That rule was written in human blood over 200,000 years. It was in every human cell. It was what made them human. Tomorrow, the galaxy would finally see it. Taman closed his eyes. He breathed slowly. He went to that cold place in his mind. And he waited for morning. Morning came. The Academy's combat arena was packed. Over 3,000 students and teachers filled the observation decks. Everyone wanted to see the human fight. Some brought snacks. Others made last-minute bets. The atmosphere was festive, like watching a sports game. The arena itself was huge. 200 meters of urban terrain with buildings, walls, and obstacles. It looked like a small city. This is where students trained for real combat. The drones would come from all directions. There was nowhere to hide for long. Professor Vorik stood in the control room checking the systems one last time. Everything was ready. He activated the announcement system. Attention, the combat simulation will now begin. Specialist Taman Ryu will face waves of combat drones. The test continues until surrender or incapacitation. The arena doors opened. Taman walked in. He wore standard combat armor and carried a coalition rifle. He looked small compared to the massive arena. The crowd murmured. He looked so ordinary, so human, so weak. Jan laughed from his seat. Look at him. He looked scared already. But Mira, sitting nearby, noticed something. Taman's face showed no expression. His movements were smooth and calm. His eyes scanned the arena methodically, taking in every detail. He was not scared. He was hunting. Beginning Wave 1, Professor Vorik announced. 5 drones. 5 combat drones appeared from different positions. They were humanoid machines programmed with advanced combat tactics. Each one was as strong as a Krill warrior and as fast as a Silene scout. They began moving toward Taman. Taman moved. Fast. He took cover behind a low wall and started firing. His shots were precise. 3 drones went down in seconds. The other 2 tried to flank him, but he anticipated their movement. He rolled to a new position and eliminated them both. Time elapsed. 47 seconds. The crowd clapped politely. It was good, but not impressive. Any decent soldier could do that. Wave 2. 8 drones, Professor Vorik said. 8 drones deployed. Taman handled them efficiently. He used the terrain well, moving from cover to cover. He conserved ammunition. He followed standard coalition tactics exactly as taught. Time, 1 minute, 18 seconds. The crowd was more interested now. 13 drones down. Maybe the human was better than expected. Wave 3. 8 drones. Taman continued his steady performance. He was not flashy. He was not dramatic. He was just effective. 21 drones total now. Some people in the crowd started reconsidering their bets. Interesting, Professor Vorik murmured. Wave 4. 12 drones. Increased coordination protocols. 12 drones appeared. These moved differently. They worked together, covering each other, creating crossfires. This was advanced tactics. Most students struggled at this level, and then something changed. Taman stopped fighting like a coalition soldier. He started fighting like something else. He destroyed one drone and immediately grabbed its body. He used it as a shield, pushing forward into the enemy formation. This was not taught in the academy. This was improvisation. This was brutal efficiency. He cleared Wave 4 in less than a minute. 33 drones total. The crowd grew quieter. This was getting interesting. Wave 5. 15 drones, the professor said. His voice had changed slightly. He was no longer bored. He was curious. Taman moved faster now. He was not just reacting to the drones. He was predicting them. He would move to a position before the drones even got there, already aiming at where they would appear. His movements became fluid, almost like a dance. A violent, deadly dance. 48 drones. Wave 6 arrived. 15 more. Taman destroyed them with increasing speed. 63 drones. The betting pools had gone completely silent. People were starting to stand up to see better. Wave 7. 15 drones. Maximum tactical coordination. The drones came in an organized assault pattern. They tried to surround him. They tried to overwhelm him. But Taman did something unexpected. He deliberately exposed himself to draw their fire. Then, in the microsecond when they were all focused on him, he moved and eliminated 3 drones simultaneously. He was using the drones' programming against them. He was exploiting tiny delays in their reaction time. He was fighting smarter, not harder. 78 drones down. Wave 8. 15 more. 93 total. The crowd was on their feet now. Jan had stopped laughing. His 4 hands gripped the railing tightly. Professor Vorik leaned forward in his chair. He was watching something he had never seen before. A style of combat that was not in any manual. A way of fighting that seemed almost reckless but was actually calculated. Every move had a purpose. Every risk was measured. Wave 9. 20 drones. Taman adapted instantly. His rifle ran out of ammunition. Without pausing, he picked up weapons from destroyed drones. He used debris as throwing weapons. He collapsed part of a building onto a group of drones. 113 drones. This was already more than any student had ever achieved. And Taman showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, he was accelerating. He was getting faster, more aggressive, more efficient. Mira pulled out her datapad. She accessed the research she had done last night. She projected it on the shared screen near her seat. Images of human history appeared. Ancient warriors, modern soldiers, battles where outnumbered humans refused to surrender. Some students looked at her screen. Their faces went pale. They were beginning to understand. This was not just a test. This was a revelation. Humans were not weak. They were something else entirely. In the arena, Taman moved like a force of nature. Wave 10 arrived. 25 drones. He destroyed them all. 138 total. Commander Park stood in the back of the observation deck. She watched with a mixture of pride and sadness. She knew what this cost Taman. She knew the pain he was ignoring, the exhaustion he was pushing through, the damage he was doing to his body, but he would not stop. Because that was not what humans did. Humans endured. Humans persisted. Humans kept fighting even when logic said they should quit. Professor Vorik made a decision. He pressed the button for Wave 11. This was no longer a test. This was a study. He needed to find the limit. He needed to see where the human would finally break. Wave 11. 30 drones. Full combat authorization. The observation deck was completely silent now. Everyone watched in awe and growing fear. The human was still going. Still fighting. Still winning. And somewhere deep inside, every alien present felt something they had never associated with humans before. They felt a primal, instinctive recognition. They were watching a predator at work. An apex predator. One that their ancestors would have fled from. Wave 11 ended. 30 drones destroyed. 168 total. Taman stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard. His armor was damaged. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye. But he was still standing. Still ready. Professor Vorik stared at his screens in disbelief. The highest record before today was 37 drones by a Krill champion. This human had passed that 5 waves ago. And he was still going, sir, his assistant Kess said nervously. Should we stop the simulation? This is beyond all normal parameters. Professor Vorik did not answer for a moment. He was transfixed. He needed to see more. He needed to understand what he was witnessing. No, continue. Wave 12. 35 drones. The next wave deployed. Taman stopped defending. He became pure offense. He ran straight toward the drones, firing as he moved. This violated every tactical doctrine. You should never charge into superior numbers. But Taman was not following doctrine anymore. He was following instinct, human instinct. The instinct of a species that hunted mammoths with pointed sticks, that crossed oceans on wooden rafts, that walked into deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands and decided they would survive. Not because they were strong, Because they refused to die. 203 drones. Wave 13. 40 drones. Taman was moving so fast now that the observation cameras struggled to track him. He was not thinking anymore. He was reacting. His brain was processing information faster than conscious thought. This was pure combat awareness, a state that human soldiers called being in the zone. His rifle broke. He picked up a broken piece of drone armor and used it as a club. When that broke, he used his hands. He was fighting with everything he had. Everything he was. 243 drones. The medical monitoring system in the control room started flashing red warnings. Taman's heart rate was dangerously high. His body temperature was rising. His muscles were tearing from overuse. The computer recommended immediate medical intervention. Dr. Liara Kent, the Academy's chief medical officer, rushed into the control room. "Stop this now. His body is breaking down. His stress hormones are at toxic levels. He could die." Commander Park stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but firm. "No. What?" Dr. Kent was shocked. "You cannot be serious. He is human like you. You would let him die?" "He will not die," Commander Park said. "Not yet. His body is screaming at him to stop. But humans have something other species do not have. We can tell our bodies no. We can override survival instincts. We can choose to keep going even when every cell is begging us to quit." She looked at the screen showing Taman fighting. Her eyes were wet with tears. "If you stop him now, they will never understand. They will never know what we are. What we can be when we have to." Professor Vorik heard this exchange. He looked at Commander Park, then at the human fighting in his arena. He made a decision that would haunt him for years. Wave 14. 45 drones, the wave deployed. 288 total. Taman fought them all. His movements were slower now. He was clearly hurt, but he adapted. He used the terrain more. He created traps. He turned the arena itself into a weapon. He triggered a controlled collapse of a damaged building, crushing 10 drones at once. He created a chain reaction of explosions by shooting power cores. He was not just fighting anymore. He was engineering destruction. In the observation deck, students watched in complete silence. This was beyond anything they had imagined. Some looked frightened. Others looked amazed. All looked changed. Their understanding of humans had been shattered and rebuilt in less than an hour. Jan the Krill warrior sat frozen in his seat. He had 4 arms, each strong enough to bend steel. He had natural armor and combat instincts bred over millions of years. But watching the small human down there, he felt something he had never felt toward another species. He felt respect and fear. "How?" he whispered. "How is he still fighting?" Mira heard him. She had been reading her research all through the simulation. Now she understood. "Because he is human," she said softly. On Earth, there were animals with claws and fangs. There were animals with venom and armor. But humans had none of these. So they developed something else. They developed the ability to refuse to quit. For 200,000 years, that was their only advantage. And it was enough. Wave 15 arrived. 50 drones. 338 total. This was more than 3 times the previous Academy record. Taman destroyed them all. Professor Vorik was no longer thinking like a teacher. He was thinking like a scientist discovering a new species. A dangerous species. He needed to find the limit. He needed to know where humans broke. "Prepare Scenario Omega," he said. Kess went pale. "Sir, no. Scenario Omega is the extinction protocol. It is designed to be unbeatable. No one has ever survived it. We only use it for system testing." "Activate it," Professor Vorik said. His voice was hard. He had to know. He had to see. The announcement echoed through the arena. "Warning. Scenario Omega activated. Maximum threat level. 50 drones deploying with full lethal authorization." The observation deck gasped. 50 drones at once with full power. This was not a test. This was an execution. Every calculation, every combat model, every tactical analysis said there was no way to survive this. Taman should surrender. He should quit. He should beg for them to stop. The 50 drones appeared. They surrounded Taman from every direction. Every angle of escape was blocked. There was no cover that would help. No strategy that would work. It was mathematically impossible. Taman stood in the center. Blood dripped from multiple wounds. His armor was in pieces. His weapons were gone. He was breathing in ragged gasps. He should have been finished. He should have been broken. Instead, he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was not a brave laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized something. The laugh of a predator who suddenly understood that it was still hungry. The laugh of a human who remembered what humans really were. That laugh echoed through the observation deck. It made every alien present feel cold, because that was not the laugh of someone who was beaten. That was the laugh of someone who had just decided to stop holding back. Commander Park heard it. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Forgive us for making you show them." The drones attacked. And Taman stopped fighting like a soldier. He started fighting like an animal, like what humans were before civilization taught them to be gentle. He fought like a cornered predator with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. He used destroyed drones as weapons, as shields, as projectiles. He used his damaged armor pieces as cutting edges. When weapons failed, he used his hands. When his hands were not enough, he used his teeth. He moved through the drones like a storm, unstoppable, relentless, terrifying. This was not skill. This was not training. This was something primal, something ancient, something that had been hiding under the surface of every human since the beginning. The galaxy was finally seeing what humans really were. Not warriors, not soldiers, survivors. Survivors who learned to fight, and that was so much more dangerous. 7 minutes and 33 seconds. That was how long Scenario Omega lasted. 7 minutes and 33 seconds of pure violence that nobody who watched would ever forget. When it ended, Taman stood alone. The arena floor was covered with destroyed drones, 388 pieces of broken machinery, smoking metal, scattered parts, complete destruction. Taman was barely recognizable. His armor was gone. His clothes were torn and bloody. Cuts covered his arms and face. His left arm hung at an odd angle, possibly broken. Blood dripped from his nose and mouth. He swayed on his feet, barely able to stand, but he was standing. Against all logic, against all probability, against everything the galaxy thought was possible, he was still standing. The simulation AI tried to deploy another wave. Nothing happened. There were no more drones. The system had run out. It had thrown everything it had at one human, and the human had destroyed it all. The observation deck was absolutely silent. 3,000 beings, and not one made a sound. They all stood frozen, trying to process what they had just witnessed. This was not possible. This was not real. But they had all seen it. In the control room, Professor Vorik sat motionless. His 4 hands trembled slightly. His assistant, Kess, was crying, though she did not know why. Dr. Kent just stared at her medical monitors, unable to believe the readings. Down in the arena, Taman turned slowly to face the observation deck. Through the reinforced glass, he looked directly at Professor Vorik. Their eyes met. Taman's face showed no triumph, no pride, no emotion at all. He simply nodded once. That nod said everything. It said, "That is the answer to your question." It said, "This is what humans can do." It said, "Not because I am special, but because I am human." It said, "We all can do this when we have to." Then his legs gave out. He collapsed onto the arena floor. The silence shattered. Medical teams rushed in. Professor Vorik activated the emergency systems. The observation deck erupted in chaos. Students were shouting, crying, arguing. Some were cheering. Others looked sick. All were changed. Commander Park ran down to the arena floor. She was the first to reach Taman. She knelt beside him, checking his pulse. He was unconscious but alive. "Barely alive, but alive. You did it," she whispered. Tears streamed down her face. "You showed them. God help us all, you showed them what we are." The medical teams arrived with stretchers and equipment. They worked quickly and efficiently. As they lifted Taman onto the stretcher, Dr. Kent examined him. Her face was pale. "How is he alive?" she asked Commander Park. His body should have shut down. His pain levels should have rendered him unconscious hours ago. Multiple muscle tears, broken bones, severe exhaustion. He should not have been able to move, let alone fight. Commander Park watched them carry Taman away. "Because he is human, Doctor. We are persistence predators. Our ancestors hunted animals by chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion. Sometimes that took days. We evolved to ignore pain, to push past limits, to keep going when every other species would stop. It is in our DNA. It is what we are." In the observation deck, Hyon sat down heavily. His legs would not support him anymore. He looked at his 4 strong arms. He had always been proud of his strength. Now he understood strength differently. Strength was not just about muscles. It was about will. And humans had a will that could not be broken. Mira turned to him. Still think humans are weak? Hyun shook his head slowly. No. I think we have been sharing the galaxy with monsters. Friendly monsters who smile and shake hands. But monsters, and we never knew. Not monsters, Mira said quietly. Just different. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. So they learned to not die. No matter what. That is not evil. That is survival. Professor Vorik slowly stood and walked to the viewing window. He looked down at the destroyed arena. 388 drones. 1 human. The math should not work, but it did. Because human math was different. Human mathematics included variables that no other species had. Variables like stubbornness. Like rage, like love. Like the refusal to accept defeat. I was wrong, he said softly. Kes looked at him surprised. I asked the wrong question. I asked how many enemies a soldier can defeat. But that assumes the soldier will eventually lose. For humans, that assumption is false. Humans do not calculate victory by numbers. They calculate it by purpose. And purpose has no mathematical limit. He turned to face his assistant. Send a message to Coalition Command. Mark it urgent. Subject: reassessment of human combat capabilities required. Our previous estimates were wrong by a factor of approximately 10 to 1. Possibly higher. Recommend immediate strategic revision. Throughout the academy, word spread faster than light. Students told other students. Teachers told other teachers. Within hours, the entire station knew. A human had faced nearly 400 combat drones and won, not just survived one. The reactions were mixed. Some species expressed admiration. Some expressed concern. Some expressed outright fear. But all had the same question. If 1 human could do this in a simulation, what could millions of humans do in a real war? In the medical center, Taman finally woke. Commander Park was still there, sitting in a chair beside his bed. She had not left. Did I answer the professor's question? Taman asked. His voice was rough and weak. Commander Park smiled sadly. You answered questions they did not even know to ask. You showed them what humans can be when we have to be, when we decide something matters. Was it worth it? He looked at his bandaged body. Everything hurt. He would need weeks to fully recover. Yes, she said firmly. They needed to know. Not because we want them to fear us, but because we want them to trust us. When the real dangers come, when the galaxy faces real threats, they need to know that humanity will be standing between them and the darkness, and that we will not move. We will not run. We will not quit. Taman closed his eyes. Then it was worth it. Outside his room, students walked by slowly. Some looked in through the window. The human who did the impossible was just lying there, looking small and hurt and ordinary. But now they knew. Behind that ordinary appearance was something extraordinary, something terrifying and wonderful, something that could not be stopped. The galaxy's understanding of humanity had changed forever. They came to the stars thinking humans were weak newcomers who needed protection. Now they knew the truth. Humans were survivors who learned to fight. And there was no more dangerous thing in the universe. 4 days passed. Taman remained in the medical center. His body needed time to heal. Dr. Kent visited him every day, fascinated and disturbed by what she was seeing. Humans healed differently than other species, faster in some ways. Their bodies seemed designed to recover from trauma quickly. Your pain tolerance is extraordinary, she told him on the 3rd day. I have been a doctor for 20 years. I have treated 17 different species. Humans exceed my medical models by over 300%. You should still be unconscious from the pain. But here you are, awake and talking. Taman shrugged with his good shoulder. Pain is just information. It tells you something is wrong. Once you know that, you can choose what to do about it. Dr. Kent shook her head in amazement. I am recommending a complete revision of human medical protocols. Everything we thought we knew was incomplete. While Taman recovered, the academy was in chaos. The Combat Simulation Division spent days analyzing every second of the fight. Their report was distributed to every military command in the coalition. The conclusions were shocking. Previous estimates of human combat capabilities had been wrong. Very wrong. The report stated that human effectiveness in combat was 5 to 12 times higher than originally calculated. But the most disturbing finding was something else. Human combat performance increased under worse conditions. When other species would slow down and make mistakes, humans became more dangerous. The analyst called it adversity escalation response. The worse things got, the more dangerous humans became. It violated every military theory. Soldiers were supposed to perform worse under stress, but humans did the opposite. Stress made them focus. Pain made them angry. Desperation made them creative. Professor Vorik read the report 3 times. Then he went to visit Taman in the medical center. He stood by the bed for a moment, not speaking. Finally, he said, "I need to apologize." "No need, sir," Taman replied. "Yes, there is," the professor insisted, "but not for doubting you. I am sorry I had to see what you are capable of. Because now I understand something terrible. You are not warriors who learn to fight for sport or glory. You are survivors who learn to fight because you had to. That is so much worse. Because warriors can choose to stop fighting, but survivors cannot. They fight until they win or until they die. There is no middle ground." Taman looked at the professor for a long moment. "With respect, sir, that is not a bad thing. When the real threats come, you will want survivors on your side, not people who fight until it gets hard. People who fight until it is over." Professor Vorik nodded slowly. Then he did something he had never done before. He performed a traditional krill gesture of respect, touching his forehead with all 4 hands. It was the highest honor a krill could give. "The galaxy is lucky you are our allies." The student reactions were complicated. Some, like Hyun, developed deep respect. Hyun visited Taman on the 4th day. He stood awkwardly at the door. "May I come in?" he asked. "Of course," Taman said. Hyun entered slowly. He looked uncomfortable. "I came to apologize. I mocked you. I called you weak. I was wrong. You are not weak. You are the strongest warrior I have ever seen." "I am not a warrior," Taman said simply. "Warriors choose to fight. I fight because I have to." "Big difference," Hyun nodded. He raised all 4 arms in a krill salute. "Then I am honored to know a human. And I am glad we are on the same side." He left quickly as if embarrassed. Mira visited every day. She brought books and asked questions. She wanted to understand. "Why did you laugh?" she asked on one visit, during Scenario Omega when the 50 drones surrounded you. "You laughed, why?" Taman thought about how to explain it. "I laughed because I realized something. I had been holding back, trying to fight like they taught me here, using their tactics, their strategies. But when those 50 drones came, I realized I did not need to fight like them. I could fight like a human, like my ancestors did, and that was freeing." "Freeing?" Mira asked. "Yes. Because once I stopped trying to be something else, I could just be what I am, and what I am is a human. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We have no natural weapons, but we have something better. We refuse to lose. That is our weapon." Mira was quiet for a moment. "I read about your history, about Earth. You fought each other for thousands of years. Terrible wars. But you survived. Is that why you are like this?" "Partly," Taman agreed. "But it goes back further. Before wars, before civilization, before anything, we were prey animals once. Lions hunted us. Bears hunted us. Everything hunted us. But we learned to turn the tables. We learned to chase things until they could not run anymore. We learned that if we just kept going, kept pursuing, kept trying, eventually everything else would stop, and we would still be there, still moving, still alive." News of the demonstration spread across the galaxy. Different species reacted differently. Some military leaders saw humans as a valuable asset. Others worried about the implications. What if humans ever became enemies instead of allies? Admiral Tosh of the Coalition Defense Fleet made a public statement that became famous. "We invited humans into our coalition thinking we were offering them protection. After seeing this simulation data, I believe we need to reconsider. We are not protecting them. They are protecting us, and they are very, very good at it." The statement caused controversy. Some supported it. Others thought it was disrespectful to other species. But everyone agreed on one thing. Their understanding of humans had been incomplete. Dangerously incomplete. Earth's government issued a careful response. They emphasized that Taman's performance showed human potential under extreme conditions, not normal human behavior. Humans were peaceful. Humans valued cooperation. But yes, if pushed, if threatened, if given no choice, humans could fight. And they could keep fighting long after anyone else would stop. Some politicians tried to downplay the demonstration. But the video footage was everywhere. 3,000 witnesses had seen it. The data was undeniable. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy had changed completely. They were no longer seen as weak newcomers. They were seen as dangerous friends. The kind of friends you wanted on your side when trouble came. The kind of friends you never wanted to fight against. On the fourth night, Commander Park visited Taman one last time before he was discharged. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Tired," he admitted. "Not just physically. Tired of being looked at differently. Tired of being a symbol." "I know," she said softly. "But you gave them something important. You gave them understanding. They thought we were weak because we look soft. Now they know better. Soft outside does not mean soft inside. It just means we are flexible, adaptable, hard to break." "I hope it was worth it," Taman said. "It was," Commander Park assured him. "Because now, when real danger comes, they will know what to expect from us. They will know that humans do not run. We stand, we fight, we endure. And we do not stop until it is over." She stood to leave. "Get some rest. Tomorrow you have a new job. They are making you an instructor. You will teach them how humans fight, how we think, how we survive, because now they want to learn." After she left, Taman lay in the darkness thinking. He had shown them what one human could do, and it had changed everything. The question was no longer whether humans could fight. The question was what the galaxy would do with that knowledge. He hoped they would use it wisely, because humans were dangerous friends, but they would be terrifying enemies, and everyone needed to understand that. 3 months later, the Galactic Military Academy looked the same on the outside. But everything had changed on the inside. The biggest change was a new course. It was called Human Combat Methodology and Strategic Integration. Every senior student had to take it. The classroom was always full. Students who had once laughed at humans now studied them carefully. They wanted to understand. Taman stood at the front of the classroom. He did not want this job at first. He did not want to be a teacher or a symbol. But Commander Park had convinced him. "They need to learn," she had said. "Not just how we fight, but why, so they can work with us better, so they can trust us when it matters." So now Taman taught, and the students listened. Really listened. Today's lesson was about human psychology and combat. "Most species fight to win," Taman explained. "That makes sense. Winning is good. But humans think differently. We do not fight to win. We fight to not lose. There is a big difference." A Threxian student raised his armored hand. "I do not understand the difference." "When you fight to win, you calculate odds," Taman said. "You ask, can I win this? If the answer is no, you retreat. That is smart. That is logical. But when you fight to not lose, you do not ask if you can win. You ask, what am I protecting? And if the answer is important enough, you fight anyway. Winning becomes less important than making sure the enemy does not win." The students thought about this. It was a strange way to think. Illogical, but also powerful. Mira, who now sat in the front row of every class, asked, "Is that why humans kept fighting in those old battles? The ones where you were outnumbered?" "Yes," Taman nodded. "At Thermopylae, the Spartans knew they would die. They fought anyway. At the Alamo, the defenders knew reinforcements would not come. They fought anyway, not because they thought they would win, because they decided the enemy would not win easily. They would pay a price, a heavy price." "That is crazy," Jan muttered. But there was respect in his voice now, not mockery. "Maybe," Taman agreed, "but it kept us alive. For 200,000 years, humans faced extinction many times. Ice ages, droughts, predators, diseases. We should have died, but we did not. Because we were too stubborn to quit." The class ended. Students filed out, talking among themselves. The academy was different now. Humans were no longer seen as weak. They were seen as dangerous, but also valuable. The kind of allies you wanted in a real crisis. The coalition military had changed too. Human advisors were now part of every major tactical planning division. Not because humans were the best at strategy, but because they thought differently. They saw options that other species missed. Options that seemed crazy but worked. New military doctrines were being written. Retreat protocols were revised to account for human behavior. Threat assessments now included a special category called human-engaged targets, because when humans were fighting something, that something became more dangerous, not because humans made enemies stronger, but because enemies fighting humans became desperate. And desperate enemies did unpredictable things. The most important change was psychological. The coalition military learned something valuable and terrifying. Enemies did not just fear losing to humans. They feared how long it took for humans to accept defeat, often longer than the enemy could keep fighting. One evening, Taman stood on the observation deck where it had all started. The same deck where students had laughed at him 3 months ago. Commander Park joined him. "How are you handling all this?" she asked. Taman shrugged. "I did not want to be a symbol. I just wanted to be a soldier." "You still are a soldier," Commander Park said. "Just a different kind now. You fight with knowledge instead of weapons. You show them the truth about humanity. Not that we are violent, not that we are aggressive, but that we are relentless, that we are the species that crossed oceans on wooden boats and walked into frozen lands and climbed mountains just to see what was on the other side, not because we were brave, because we decided fear does not get to decide." "Was it right?" Taman asked quietly. "Showing them? Now they are afraid of us." "They are not afraid of us," Commander Park corrected. "They are aware of us. There is a difference. Fear is thinking something will hurt you. Awareness is knowing what something can do. They needed awareness, because the galaxy has real threats, and when those threats come, they need to know what to expect from us." "And what should they expect?" Taman asked. Commander Park smiled. "They should expect that humans will not be the species running away. We will be the species standing between them and whatever threatens them, not because we are heroes, because that is what humans do. We protect what we care about, and we do not stop." Graduation day arrived. The ceremony was huge. Thousands of cadets from dozens of species gathered in the main hall. Professor Vorik was giving the keynote address. He stood at the podium looking out at the crowd. 3 months ago, I asked a question in my classroom. How many enemies can a single elite soldier defeat? Specialist Taman Ryu answered with 388. But that is the wrong number to remember. The hall was silent. Everyone listened. The right number is 1, Professor Vorik continued, because that is how many threats need to target something a human cares about, before they become unstoppable. We have spent centuries building military doctrine on logic, on calculating odds, on knowing when to retreat. Humans have spent their entire history proving that logic is optional when something matters enough to them. He paused, looking directly at Taman in the audience. That is not a weakness. That is the most powerful strength I have ever encountered, because you cannot outlast it. You cannot outcalculate it. You can only hope you never have to face it. Professor Vorik called Taman to the stage. He pinned him with the Coalition's highest training honor. The hall erupted in applause, not just polite clapping, real appreciation, real respect, real understanding. Taman accepted the award quietly, but he was not standing alone. Behind him stood Commander Park. Behind her stood other human officers. And behind them, in a way that everyone in the hall could feel, stood all of humanity. 200,000 years of survival. 200,000 years of refusing to quit. 200,000 years of proving that the human spirit could not be broken. The ceremony ended. Students filed out. But everyone knew something had changed. The galaxy had learned what humanity was. Not warriors. Not conquerors. Survivors who learned to fight. And that was so much more dangerous, because warriors might choose peace, but survivors never forgot how to fight. They never lost that edge. It was part of them, forever. That night, in classrooms across the Coalition, instructors began teaching the new doctrine. When they discussed combat capabilities, human statistics were marked with a special notation. Not because humans were better than other species, but because human capabilities could not be measured the same way. Other species fought until the odds said they should stop. Humans fought until they ran out of enemies or ran out of life, whichever came first. There was no middle ground. No surrender. No acceptance of defeat while they could still move. The galaxy had asked what humanity would contribute to the Coalition. After one demonstration in one academy on one distant station, they had their answer. Humanity contributed the one thing every civilization needed when facing the unknown. Someone who refused to accept that darkness wins. Someone who would stand in the gap. Someone who would fight not because they were sure they would win, but because losing was not an option. That was what humans were. That was what they would always be. And now finally the galaxy understood.